This photo went viral in 2008. It was taken here, near the Brazil-Peru border in Brazil's Acre state, of a tribe that has been living completely isolated from the outside world. This tribe is not alone. Deep in the mysterious Amazon rainforest, among big cats, big snakes, poisonous frogs, deadly insects, and unidentified species, there are still dozens, if not hundreds of tribes living completely off the land, disconnected from modern society. No cars, no internet, no real national government. Who are they? How are they still uncontacted? And are we leaving them alone?
And in every case, they've said that life was better before contact.
A quick word from us, GREENBELLY Meals. We make big meal bars packed with 650 calories and loaded with protein, fat, fiber, and carbs for big outdoor adventures. GREENBELLY meals have been called Rice Krispie treats on steroids and come in 5 flavors using all natural ingredients.
GREENBELLY meals, and these are really delicious bars.
GREENBELLY.
GREENBELLY.
GREENBELLY meals.
GREENBELLY.
If you have an outdoor adventure coming up, check us out at greenbelly.com. How long humans have been in the Amazon is still debated. Some estimates say for over 30,000 years. And how populated they were remains up for debate. It was originally believed the region largely remained densely forested with little evidence of civilization, until recently.
There's a lot of evidence now that this really is kind of a human-shaped landscape. There's this phenomenon of black earth, which is this very nutrient-dense earth that they've discovered, formed by indigenous peoples.
The first Europeans came to the Amazon region in the 1500s. Known as conquistadors, Spanish and Portuguese explorers came in search of gold, fame, and land to expand their kings' empires, sometimes accompanied by missionaries intent on spreading Christianity to new populations. Notably Francisco Orellano, a Spanish conquistador who in 1542 became the first European to navigate the entire Amazon River.
He came from the west looking for the famous El Dorado, this place that supposedly had so much gold that you could see the shine glowing in the water.
El Dorado.
Another wave of exploration came from the booming rubber industry in the 18th and 19th century, when demand for rubber soared and was abundantly found in the Amazon. The European treatment of native populations during this time was one of the worst in history: enslavement, rape, and mass murders. But even more deadly were the diseases that they brought with them, which the natives had no immunity to. Disease decimated the indigenous populations. Entire tribes were eliminated.
These virgin soil epidemics were just absolutely devastating. Diseases being brought from the old world by Europeans to the new world. 95% of the indigenous populations were wiped out.
This study from the University of Missouri studied over 11,000 indigenous deaths between 1875 and 2008 and determined 75% of the deaths were caused specifically by measles, influenza, and malaria. Many remaining indigenous tribes fled deep inland looking for safety, away from the violence and disease-spreading conquistadors.
We do think that many of these uncontacted tribes are actually descendants of indigenous peoples who might have fled from violence and enslavement.
And that's why they are still uncontacted, because they found the most remote, difficult to reach redoubt in the rainforest and have been hiding there for generations now.
Today, Amazon tribes vary in their contact with society. Some are integrated, having things like jobs in nearby towns, or have moved to urban areas.
There are the Marubo and the Matses, isolated but somewhat connected to the outside world. Some of the better known contacted tribes, the Kayapo in the central Brazilian Amazon, the Guajajara in the eastern Amazon.
Other tribes are completely isolated though, and remain what many call uncontacted. Meaning, not necessarily that they have never been in contact with other humans. They might have been in contact with early colonists, industrialists, or missionaries, or more recently by illegal loggers. However, the contact has not been sustained, and is often violent. It is estimated anywhere from 50 to 200 uncontacted tribes exist in the Amazon. Most of them are concentrated in the remote upper watershed here in the Amazon basin, in northern and western Brazil, and some in eastern Peru, away from the main Amazon River channels.
Groups of the Awa, the Awaguasha, the Mashco Piro, the Kawahiva.
There's still one last village of uncontacted Yanomami.
The biggest concentration of uncontacted tribes in the world is the Javari Valley in Brazil, and we know that there's at least probably 16 uncontacted groups there.
The Javari hosts the largest concentration of uncontacted indigenous communities anywhere in the world, in an area that's about the size of Portugal.
Little is known about them, their culture, language, beliefs. What we do know can come from individuals who have come out of isolation, neighboring tribes, artifacts, one-off encounters, and limited studies.
We can say without a doubt, much of the way they're living today resembles their lives in pre-Columbian America. There's still a great deal of emphasis placed on the community and communal harvest, communal hunting, sharing food, ritual celebrations, rites of passage.
The ability to monitor the existence, location, and populations of these tribes has gotten better over the last few decades. LiDAR, a sort of laser light radar technology, has been used to detect historical archaeological structures, and satellite imagery helps study the actual current human populations, which is less invasive than other monitoring methods, like helicopter flyovers. Some tribes are horticulturalists, clearing areas to plant their crops. Through generations, they have passed down a highly intricate understanding of how the forest functions, moving every 3 to 10 years when the soil is depleted of nutrients. Other tribes are more nomadic hunter-gatherers.
The arrow people, they are skilled archers and they use bow and arrow. The arrowheads are made from fire-hardened bamboo. Niawa use blowguns in addition to bows and arrows. Blowguns are largely used vertically to knock monkeys or birds out of the forest canopy.
Tribes often live in malokas or communal houses. Studying the tribes is less focused on their culture and history than we might think, rather on understanding their livelihood, with the goal to protect them and ensure their existence.
The anthropology is, at least in my mind, kind of secondary. I think the more pressing concern is, are they going to survive or not?
Killed by the people his tribe fights against, illegal loggers.
What we do know is these tribes are not interested in establishing a relationship with outsiders. They've made a deliberate effort to remain isolated.
We know this from a number of different reasons, like crossed arrows or other things across paths that are kind of demarcating their territory and telling outsiders explicitly not to come into their territory.
And most of the uncontacted tribes remain hostile to outsiders, with many stories of missionaries, loggers, and curious adventurers being killed by their spears or arrows.
Running along the riverbank with their bows and arrows drawn.
Much of this is driven by the long history of violence and abuse from outsiders. There's also a feeling that this is their home, and anyone coming into their home is an intruder.
People just trying to venture, oh, there is a new tribe I want to film or I want to make contact, and then they got even killed. That's their home. If somebody invades your house, what's your reaction?
The Brazilian and other South American governments have laws to protect the tribe's lands and prevent outside forces like loggers and miners from entering. However, these laws are not always respected nor enforced.
The laws are there. The problem is the enforcement. These places are so big, so vast, and there's so much incentive for loggers and miners to move in.
Enforcing laws over thousands of miles of remote and dense jungle requires a lot of resources, including serious funding and manpower, which has proved difficult, and left some tribes to defend their land against loggers on their own terms.
The only way to protect their land is to do it themselves.
This brings us to the big question. Should we contact them or not? There's a heated debate around this. Those for contact and those against. Both sides agree on the goal of ensuring these tribes' survival, but differ on the methods. Those for contact argue many of these tribes' populations are fragile, and by contacting them, we can help.
There's this guy. He died last year or 2 years ago. He was the very last member of his tribe.
The man he is referring to is Tanaru, the lone surviving man of his tribe for at least 35 years. His death marked his tribe's complete cultural extinction. This is not uncommon. Another study from the University of Missouri in 2015 estimated a set of isolated tribes in northern Brazil ranged from 3 to 281 individuals, meaning some tribes have less than 20 people, which is not sustainable. In other words, many of these tribes are critically endangered. And some argue contact is inevitable, especially as illegal logging continues to encroach on their land. By initiating contact before the loggers, we could control and manage it, with a communicator and a healthcare team ready with antivirals. Researchers studying a Bolivian tribe commented their life expectancy was only 42 years, leading many to wonder if modern medicine could help decrease their mortality rates and ensure their survival.
Education, technology, electricity, some meds, some other diseases that we already have vaccine.
The University of Missouri's study results seem to support this belief, concluding mortality rates from epidemics decline exponentially with time since peaceful contact, meaning well-managed contact along with modern medicine could increase their lifespans.
Most people live in a fairy tale world where we can just kind of leave them alone and everything will be great. My worry is if we do that, we'll have this conversation in 10 years or 20 years and we'll be like, oh yeah, remember those people? Oh yeah, well they died.
Those against contacting the tribes believe the risk of introducing more disease is just too great.
I really think that is an extremely dangerous idea. The history of contact has been very devastating, decimating populations up to sometimes 90%.
We also risk introducing them to other problems, like alcoholism. Indigenous cultures have a unique relationship with alcohol, often used in rituals involving heavy drinking.
When they have in contact with the stronger liquors, they just can't stop. And that brings to depression, and they commit suicide.
It is also clear these tribes want to remain isolated and away from outsiders. Therefore, we should respect that.
We've talked personally to indigenous peoples who've come out of the forest who were uncontacted. And in every case, they've said that they would not have wanted to be forcibly contacted, that life was better before contact.
Which has to make us wonder, is our modern society inherently better than their life in the forest? Are our societal luxuries of things like medicine an improvement? Is contacting them even our decision to make?
There's very little at this point that people from the outside could offer indigenous peoples. The only way is to not attempt to contact, to respect their rights and their wishes to live as they wish. We've seen if their lands are protected, they really thrive.
The existence of humans living outside of modern society continues to fascinate us. As we drive to work, eyes glued to our phones, buying food from surplus grocery stores, knowing humans are still out there hunting and gathering, living deep in the forest, reminding us of an alternative, more primal way of life. Hopefully, we can ensure their existence continues, and the protection of their land is enforced. What do you think? Should we contact these tribes or not? Let us know. We read all the comments. We're a small team that spends a lot of time researching these videos. If you like this, we'd love it if you gave us a like and a subscribe. A big thanks to Daniel, Robert, Scott, and Milton for their help researching this video. If you're interested in supporting their work, please see the links in the description.